So hey, it's me, your boy, LB. It's been a while since I've done some commentary content like this, but I figured it would be better for you all to hear what I have to say from my own voice rather than text. I originally was going to open this video on a joke, but the more I thought about what I had to say, I didn't find it appropriate. So to acknowledge the giant elephant in the room, why did I stop uploading content for a year? Life. Life, that's why. 2023 was not the worst year of my life, but it was a lot to take in. So much happened, and I could be here for hours complaining, but I'll just make this quick and give you the general rundown. If you wish to get to the behind the scenes, the content you're actually watching for, then I completely understand. So go to the timestamp on screen. If not, then sit down and get ready. We have a lot to cover. So first and foremost, my cat went missing. A little silly, but if longtime fans remember, I had a cat named Stormo. I got him in 2019, one of the best years of my life, and he was just the best. I remember in high school I made so many edits of him just to show off to people, just because I genuinely loved him that much. He was a goofball, and was one of the best pets I ever owned. He wasn't needy, super chill, and really playful because he was an outside cat. I guess he just loved nature, like me. Fun fact, his name actually came from Jackson Storm, not only because they were both gray, but because the first day my mom actually brought him to the house, he bit my Jackson Storm diecast, and I just went on from there. Earlier in 2023, he went outside and never came back. I waited optimistically that he would come back, but he didn't. So this either means one of two things. Either he found a new home, or he's dead. I really hope the first, just so he can be alive, but considering how many cats die in my neighborhood, the latter is a very real possibility. Which really sucks because I'll never know the truth. Whatever happened, thank you for being in my life, little buddy. Rest well. Next, I got into a car accident. Some may think it's not a big deal, but for someone like me who was already anxious about driving, it was a lot. It happened so fast, and it was a case of me being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And being so young, the repercussions could have been devastating. Luckily, nothing came from it, and I continue to pray to God that nothing does come from it, but the damage done to my mental state and the others was depressing. The others I refer to is some family members who were in the car with me, and it really bothers me that not only my life was in danger that day, it was also theirs. Thankfully, none of them harbor any hate towards me now, and they're doing great, but again, the guilt, the shame, and the fear that something like this happened and could happen again is clouding my mind constantly, like right now. Also, please don't take this as me begging for your sympathy by acting like this is some sob story. It's the truth and really was something that plagued my mind constantly and my motivation around the project. I'm way better now, and the confidence I have for driving is back up. Next, my loyal iPad of 6 years died. I made a post discussing this before, so to recap, the battery got fried over the years of constant editing, exporting, and drawing, which meant I lost my method of drawing expressions for the characters. Luckily, I still had my phone and, at the time, newly acquired MacBook for filming and editing, but one of the main appeals for my videos was lost. I looked into getting it repaired, which I was able to send it off, where I got it back fixed a year later. Yeah, it was ridiculous. I'll explain what I did to get around this problem later on, but just know this was another cause of stress for me since my iPad contained all my files over the years of content, and it frustrated me to no end. Next up, I lost my main filming space. I made a post about this like the last, but the space where I filmed at had to be occupied by another family member of mine who was unfortunately going through their own set of horrific issues that, out of respect, I will not elaborate on further. They stayed with us for about 7 months, and during that time I tried filming in my room, but the conditions made filming unbearable so much that it killed my motivation for a while, and only 2 scenes from these attempts made it into the video, which I'll point out later on. Again, another thing that just stressed me out. Lastly, college. On a lighter note, I had college to focus on, and to be honest, it was stressful at times, but it really took my mind off the channel, which allowed me to make some peace with myself. Ever since I graduated high school, it's been nothing but that, and the crazy thing is, this summer has been my first actual summer break in 2 years. To accelerate my journey, I've been going nonstop, taking fall, spring, and summer classes, and it really started to take its toll around the time of the project. Not a lot to say any further, but believe me, you gotta take it seriously, and it is very time consuming. With all that happened, it limited what I could do, and my motivation and mental state was all over the place. I didn't know what to do, and I was unsure of my future. The thing that bothered me the most during all this was I felt like I was letting you all down. The VAs who spent their time contributing to my work, and the viewers asking for content, seeing all the comments go by, asking when's the next video, or when's the next upload, or if I was just generally okay, made me feel like I was obligated to stretch my mind and come up with whatever to keep everyone at bay, because I really did not want to cancel the project. I was just all over the place, yeah. And I told myself, we're not coming back to YouTube unless we get the project done or have something to show. And there were little times where I uploaded on my Instagram, on my stories, but that basically had nothing to do with the channel. I'm glad I did this because I made peace with myself and said it was okay. That's life. Anything can happen, and there are going to be so many more times where I'll have to use my time away from YouTube, because there's going to be so much more important things to worry about. Then 2024 happened, where all my motivation came back. I wanted to make this better. I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do moving forward, which brings us to the rebrand. I explained in a community post that I did this to mark a new era, an era of my mind being made. What I want is to bring content that I'm truly happy with. No shortcuts, great quality, originality, and no worries while being true to myself, to be something in this community that's unique and makes people happy, as well as myself, which I have somewhat shown over the years with my other interests, but nothing ever came from it. But moving forward, I do plan on expanding on those and making content out of them. There's always been a reason why my name hasn't been something directly related to cars like so many others. It's because I always wanted to include those other passions somehow. It'll start off as maybe community post and hopefully can transition into full videos. Thank you for listening, and now let's get into what you came here for. What's good, everyone, and welcome to the behind the scenes of Fast and Foolish, a video that was in production hell for a literal year and conceived in a pretty busy time of my life. For this video, I will be going in depth of how I created the thing in 4 stages: pre-production, filming, editing, and my final thoughts. But let's not waste any more time and begin. So it's late February 2023. I was on my grind uploading on the community tab, making shorts and videos, and I hit 14,000 subscribers. Again, thank you. I wanted my next project to be something fun, something exciting, something I can go all out on, but I didn't know what. That's when I decided to do a bit of reflecting and rewatch a couple of my really old videos. And while cringing, I found this, the second ever video uploaded onto the channel. And while I watched, I was like, what if I do that again? That's right. Fast and Foolish is technically a remake of The Consequences of Speeding. It's very obvious since both essentially follow the same plot of events at their core. You know, tuners speeding on the highway, sheriff chases, they get caught and go to jail. However, as I wrote, the video became less of a remake to the point where the original only really served as a guideline. I finished the script over a couple weeks, finishing mid-March, where I cycled through ideas, and originally there was going to be so much more dialogue in the beginning and throughout the chase, but I discovered and interrupted the pacing of the scenes and honestly contributed nothing to the small story I had going on. It was just a yap fest of corny one-liners and jokes, and yeah, that's why most of that was cut. The opening was originally going to be of McQueen and Mac. Mac would have basically said the same things as Gale, but McQueen would have just been watching TV or something. But I decided to go with Storm and Gale because 1, Storm hasn't starred in a video in literal years, and 2, seeing their dynamic, in my opinion, is a lot more interesting. so I went through with his change. Act 3 is the big one. Act 3 was originally going to be the chase invading a race taking place in Santa Barbara, and the sequence would have played out entirely different. Boost would have caused the big one to take the police out, and Wingo would have caused trouble in the pits that eventually led to him getting caught. And I didn't plan anything for DJ since I decided not to go through with these ideas because, one, they would have been too difficult to get done, especially with all that happened around that time, and it would have been really difficult to film. It would have required almost triple the amount of sets and animation that had to be done, and that just went over budget in my head. So the movie set idea was invented to replace it, which also provided a more diverse location for the channel. The script went from 15 to 11 pages. The official working title was The Tuner's High-Speed Chase. Once that was done, I began recruiting VAs, which most of them were returnees that featured in my previous work. They came back for either continuity or had a voice that I thought would work for the character. Super RJ previously voiced Aaron Clocker from What Happened to Bobby Swift and Aaron's Apparition. He's got good vocal range, and I thought his voice for DJ would work, but more on that later because there's a story that goes with that. The same reason I just said for Super RJ goes with 𝗃𝗵𝗄𝗏 Johnson, who also starred in those videos where he voiced Flipped Over and 𝗃𝗵𝗄𝗏 or Die Hard 24. In Chase World of Cars returned to voice Carlo Maserati and Sheriff respectively. For new actors, we have 𝗃𝗏𝗺 Incorporated, who I reached out to because of a diecast remake he made of my Storm Goes Too Far short on Discord. In the video, he voices Storm himself, and I thought he had a great voice, so I asked him, and he agreed. Auditions were held for Gale. Everyone did a great job, but my favorite was Tangled the Lemur fan 2008, and they got the role. Roland Rusty actually came to me asking if there were any characters up for grabs, where I gave him the Rescue Squad helicopter. Last but not least, there was Boost, who was voiced by Crusader, a cool friend of mine who wanted a role in a video, and I offered him Boost, and he accepted, which I'm glad he did. You did a great job, man, and I will definitely call you for future videos. The VAs all finished their lines at separate times before and after filming began. With all that said, I looked into buying a few new props. I brought some brown gravel for the road and mini hay bales from Hobby Lobby for scenery during the opening highway chase. However, some props were either bought or made way later into production, so I'll have to discuss that in the next section. The tuners and Sheriff were not in the best condition, so I tried semi-restoring them. Boost had his carbon fiber repainted matte black, his smile was filled in with white, and I added redlining to his wheels. It's not super accurate to the movie, but it is accurate to this specific version of him, and I personally think they look nicer. Wingo received green lining on his wheels, and Snot Rod I painted a grille onto him with headlights. DJ was the most extensive, as I had to add light blue lining on his wheels, painted his smile, and had to completely redo the bolts on his side, since they were originally blue, super inaccurate to his appearance in the shorts and movies. And unlike Boost's redlining, I really fucking hate it, so I painted them in with 2 different shades of green and constantly had to trim the paint to make sure they were as straight as possible. Overall, I think I did a pretty serviceable job. All their exhaust pipes were painted in to represent the flames with matching colors. By the way, I did all the painting with a toothpick, and it was very difficult, but it allowed me to be super precise. For Sheriff, all I did was paint his deteriorating silver with gray, because that's all I had at the time, and repainted his sirens. To be honest, I wanted him to look better than he did, and it didn't need to be too intricate. Afterwards, I made 2 highway signs, one for Sheriff to sleep under, and one to show the next location for Act 2. I created the graphics in 𝗨𝗏𝗺 and printed them onto sticker paper. To fit cardboard, I spray painted gray and brown. Using the wire, I was finally able to make them stand for the scene, and unfortunately the conditions of the props have gone to hell over time. Filming officially began May 11th, 2023, and unfortunately the accident I spoke of earlier in the video happened days later. The project halted for a bit and production restarted May 22nd. The scenes were all filmed out of order to allow me not to keep changing the set constantly and not to make them all look exactly the same for a few shots that were meant to be different. I would rearrange change things slightly, like adding or removing a few props, I do have a few deleted scenes that I can show you all. The first is an alternate take of Gale driving by. It was deleted because it was too fast, and I reshot it and liked how the new one had the camera focus change, so I went with that one. The second is an alternate boost wheel scene. It wasn't finished because I didn't like the perspective, and it would have been too hard to keep the wheels and the camera consistent with each other. And the last is an alternate take of the transition to Sheriff. The tuners race by 𝗵𝘂𝗍 hauler, and the camera goes left as he passes, and as he does, the background would have changed to where Sheriff was sleeping. A cool shot in concept, but I was just not having it. It was absolute hell trying to get it done, and I did not go through with the idea because, again, it was too difficult, and in the context makes no sense since it implies 𝗵𝘂𝗍𝗂𝗧 hauler is just now passing Sheriff and not the tuners, despite just being shown to pass them because the cut to Sheriff sleeping was still being kept, where the tuners wouldn't pass for like 3 seconds. So I just went with the hard cut. It was easier and made more sense flow wise. Act 1's highway filming was completed by the end of the month. Before we get into the next set, I did want to purchase more police diecast to increase the cop roster, but my stores just generally suck. I couldn't find anything, and the prices for the specific cars I wanted were a bit too high, and I'd rather spend my planned budget towards the set. That's why the 2 Hot Wheels cars and Holly appeared to be part of the police. They were all I had. Before Act 2 filming could begin, I had to create the building props. I originally was going to print them out, but I wanted something super simple, and I had a literal pile of construction paper lying around. So I had a bright idea. Like the boats in the 𝗵𝗺𝗺𝗀𝗃 video, I looked up ways to create buildings using origami. In the end, I found a pretty cool tutorial by, I'm going to butcher this, 𝗨𝗍𝗱𝗲𝗂𝗧 and used that to make my own buildings. I created many of all different shapes and sizes, but eventually started doing my own thing and made the designs of my own to diversify the scene and make it feel more real. The first batch was completed June 1st, and the next day I made the first city set and filmed the opening shot, which went to be unused because a couple days later I decided to remake the set. The original looked pretty tacky in my opinion, and the construction paper road would constantly shift around and was not seamless at all. The animation in the scene, however, wasn't bad, and I actually think it has a one-up on the final scene since you can notice the cars slide more like they were drifting. But besides the tacky set, it has its own issue context-wise. 𝗵𝗶 joins the chase from the right side of the same road. The tuners just went down, so it makes you think, why didn't 𝗵𝗶 just smack into them, you know, while she saw them coming down the street? It would make no sense, and that just contributed to the scene being deleted. Then my formed family member moved in and I lost the space. I remade the original opening with 2 other scenes of the city in my room. However, the conditions were miserable, and after I got those initial scenes, I called it quits. I wanted the video to continue having multiple tracking shots and to make it feel more alive and action-packed, but due to how small the space was, it was impossible. The only good thing that came from this was the 2 scenes that made it into the final draft, and the fact I was able to remake the set to look so much better. To my dismay, I took the set down and stored away all the props for the time being. I decided to put my time elsewhere by at least starting to export all the footage and begin editing those scenes. My iPad had one last hurrah as I was able to complete the thumbnail art on July 13th. You may notice the character art is very different from the ones featured in the video. That's because one was made from drawing on an iPad and the other was made on a MacBook using mouse. More on that in the editing section. After I was done with the art, I took the image to 𝗨𝗺𝗺𝗺 where I put my graphic design skills to the test. I added a motion blur, increased the contrast, exposure, vibrance, and saturation. Added a blur explosion and gave the police sirens a glow. Now, when it came to the title, I noticed the original Tuner's high-speed chase was clunky and I wanted something more simple, something that audiences would gravitate to. While brainstorming, I saw a comment on one of my YouTube stories asking if the video was going to be a Fast and Furious parody. I honestly liked the idea and the fact that Fast X just released and Netflix added the first 5 Fast and Furious movies, which made me rewatch all those to gain inspiration and understanding of the choreography they used to create that sense of action and tension and speed in those films. All made me want to go in on the idea. I came up with a new title, Fast and Foolish. Fast because duh, and foolish because the characters are pretty goofy. I sadly don't remember who posted the comment, and I can't go back because YouTube removed their story feature. So the original commentator is watching this. Thank you so much. you're the reason why the project has a better title. After that, months would go by. I had college to focus on, and all my time went into that. In that time, things slowly got better for me. I saw the Barbie movie, loved it. Saw the FNAF movie, didn't love it. Played 𝗵𝗫 to relax my mind. And however, later in that year, I got the filming space back, but I didn't go back to filming right away because my motivation was just effed. But later that month, I started planning my comeback, which made me want to go through with the rebrand. I drew concept sketches, decided who I wanted to include on the banner. Once my winter break began, I started the process of rearranging my room and installing my new shelves. New Year's Day came and went, where all my motivation came flooding back. I thought, it's a new year, let's make our dreams come true. I finished my YouTube profile pic and finished my banner by the 6th. My spring semester started soon, and I sadly had to prioritize that. It wasn't until February I decided to finish Act 1 completely by getting Storm's hauler scene. I originally was going to use the interior of the hauler, but I found it to be super drab and wanted something nicer. So I quickly made a prop for the interior using cardboard and glossy paper for the decals that I made in 𝗨𝗶𝗀. I got plenty of photos testing alternate shots. Fun fact, I actually forgot to give him headphones and realized this when I was editing, so early the next day I got the correct photo. Through the rest of the month to March 5th, I created the second batch of building props where I made them even more diverse than the last. When I finished, I finally had the motivation to go back filming, and I created the city set. Seeing it back up and being able to get the scenes I desperately wanted to get after so many months was euphoria. For these scenes, the cars would roll because of how smooth the set was, and to hold them in place for pictures, I used tape and either placed them in between the wheels or beneath the cars, which you can actually see with a keen eye as goofs. I refilmed the second shot of the tuners passing Derek since I thought the original could have been better. During the hiatus, I was still actually collecting. I only picked up what I thought was worth it, like the next gen Walmart hauler and a few 𝗂𝗵𝗄 racers, and some of them made their way into the video. Mainly the Walmart hauler, who took the combustors hauler's role of crashing into Snot Rod. I got another deleted scene, which is only a second and was supposed to be another perspective of the crash, but it sucked, so I ended up cutting it. Act 2's filming would end by the end of March. Then I got a new phone, the iPhone 15, and my old iPhone 11 was retired to a life of providing me content while I worked. You can notice this in a few behind the scenes photos. Afterwards, blah blah blah, midterms, blah blah blah, getting my money up, blah blah blah. Oh, it's April. In April, I created the yellow movie set buildings the same way as the city buildings, except they were much larger in length and not width. May 5th, I created Act 3 set. I would film all the scenes, but I wasn't alone. 2 new cats joined my home, and they would just spectate me like the NPCs they are. A few deleted scenes came from this. 1, an alternate shot of Wingo crashing into Harumi, and 2 tracking shots of DJ and Boost. These were all deleted because I didn't like the perspectives. So I got 2 videos of myself that explained what I was doing or what was happening, and I'll show those now. Okay, so I'm filming, right? In the scene, he's about to break the cop's ankles, right? And while I was moving some of the barriers, that shit decided to break off. I mean, I'm not tripping about it because, again, it's just a prop. I could just buy a new one. And you know, I can just leave it like this, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys won't notice, but it's pissing me off because this is like one of my only white pieces. Like, if you look around, I have a lot more. Again, I shouldn't be tripping, but it's like, damn, I don't feel like spending that kind of money. So you know what you guys can do so I can buy a new one. You can like and subscribe the video, you know, like and subscribe so I can get paid, you know what I'm saying? Give me money. Okay guys, so after the last behind the scenes video I just filmed, I just realized a camera trick that I can do. Okay, so a recent problem I've been having lately is that the camera just does not want to pick up the closest thing to them. I got a new phone, so I'm getting used to it, but it's been happening on my same phone. I think it's a problem with the app I'm using, Stop Motion Pro. And this is just gonna be a tip for anyone else who uses it. So basically what I do is, right, I get the scene ready, and then the camera just does not want to pick up, like, you can barely tell, but if you use the app, you know what I'm talking about. The camera is not picking up on the closest object. So what I just taught myself to do is to just pull the camera back like this, right? and then the camera's going to be able to focus on that, but it's not exactly where I want it to be. I want it to be zoomed in more. Well, good thing they got a zoom in feature, and the cool thing about it is it keeps the quality. Like, this is probably the biggest no shit moment, but I swear to God, it was not like this a couple years ago. Like, if I play something in front of the camera, it would just focus immediately. I don't know if this is some update they did or something, but this is just a tip I want everyone else to learn about. I know a couple people asked me about the same thing because they were into the same issue. I mean, the fuck, I got damn these cats. Okay, yeah, that's just what I wanted to show you guys. Hopefully it makes it into the behind the scenes video. A lot of scenes required me to lift up the camera so high on my tripod that it nearly started to touch the top of my basement. But to be fair, the area isn't all too tall. As I went on, I began thinking of ways of creating a teaser trailer and what music I would like to use. I'll go into more detail in the editing section. For Wingo's Crash, I wanted to make it a practical effect and refer to the model work done by Clearwater Studios, who worked on a talking vehicle show in the 80s. Although I wonder what that show could have been. May 14th, I would go on to create a fake brick wall for Wingo to crash through. Instead of construction paper, I went with tongue depressors, or normal people terms, popsicle sticks. Since I wanted something that I could reassemble and test whenever I wanted, I cut a Wingo-sized hole with an X-Acto knife, placed the piece back in, and painted a brick wall texture with brown, red, and orange acrylics, using this video by Behind the Scenics as a reference. I added further supports on the back to ensure the wall didn't tip over while filming. The left side was a lot lighter than the right, so I added the ends of the popsicle sticks to add weight. I went on to film the rest of Act 3 for the next 7 days, where I got plenty of photos with all kinds of different perspectives of the scene that didn't make it into the final video. For the green screens, I got the rescue squad helicopter surrounded by green construction paper, and for the scene of Boost and DJ driving past Wingo, I ran into an issue and realized I fucked up by not having the right amount of space to have a spot for them to drive on. So I made a quick decision to just green screen them in and set into the scene. It's not what I wanted, and I honestly think it could have turned out better, but it got the job done. May 20th, I began assembling my next few props. I purchased a Lego boat off of Amazon and assembled it and began construction of the containers. I learned how to do this via video by Quinnen's Budget Crafts, again diverging into making my own designs of different shapes and sizes, and used the tutorial as a reference. Originally, I was going to print sponsors and attach them onto the crates, but my printer was not having it and ruined the color so much that I decided it was better not to include them. During this, I also made a crazy discovery. It was only 4 weeks until the 18th anniversary of Cars. The stars aligned, and not only would the video be a celebration of that, but also the channel hitting 17,000 subscribers during the hiatus, and my comeback, which would get me into the algorithm. Unfortunately, trouble arose as a fucking thunderstorm took out my house's power days later and forced me to stay elsewhere. I lost a day of progress, but that night I was able to continue editing Act 3. While this was happening, I tried editing the green screen scenes, and oh my god, they looked horrible. Mainly the helicopter scenes, the lighting in those were not the best, and the consequence was when under the screen effect in the editing program, some areas of the helicopter were erased and looked like you took an image onto one of those shitty background erasing websites without adjusting tolerance at all. With the new deadline, I had two options. It was either refilm all those scenes or color the background to change the green screen color in editing, so the lighting wouldn't affect those anymore. And not knowing when my power was coming back, I chose to do the latter, which was actual hell on earth. By May 18th, the power returned and I built Act 4's port set, and that day I bought chicken wire for fencing. Filming was going super smoothly until I realized I needed a ramp. I quickly made one using popsicle sticks and sprayed it in silver. Two deleted scenes exist. The first one was an alternate side shot of Boost that was too fast for my liking and was too zoomed out. The second was an alternate shot of Storm colliding with Boost. It was deleted because I didn't like the camera quality. I did get this silly photo that I called the alternate ending. I may edit this one day, I don't know. May 30th, I would build the prison set using chicken wire for fencing. Originally, I was going to light the scene as if it took place in the morning. That didn't give me the results that I wanted, so I changed it to resemble the midday lighting from the beginning. Another two deleted scenes exist. The first was cut short because I made the decision to change the lighting, and you can see it change for one frame. The second was cut because the spare screw to hold the camera was in frame. Later that day, I got the Kabuto post-credit scene, which was really easy but took a bit to figure out. I was going to make an all-new set, but I figured I could just reuse the cow house prop from ages ago and cover the areas in black construction paper. I did, but I didn't glue anything down since I wanted to keep the prop intact. So I crudely held the construction paper on the wall with spray paint cans. And filming would officially end that very night. Oh man, okay, that was a lot just to cover for filming alone. Now, let's get into how I edited the entire thing. Repeated multiple times in this video, I began editing early on to compensate for the progress I lost in filming. To edit, I used Capcut, a software I've been wanting to use for years and finally went through with using it. My last video before the hiatus was Mac iCar's reveal, and I used that as one of the test runs. All went well, and this became my new main editing software. The scenes I had were exported and roughly edited together just to give me an idea of what I was working with. The lines I had were placed into the timeline, but there were some I didn't have, which I would get over time, but one character's lines needed some work. You see, RJ sent me his lines, and that day I was busy and didn't think too much about them. I said to myself, yeah, that's my boy right there. He wouldn't send me any garbage, right? Right? Well, one day when I was editing and retrieving his lines, I finally listened, and they were, interesting, to say the least. I won't say too much, but DJ was gonna sound like Stitch. Yeah, that one. Luckily, he redid them, and I gave him an actual direction to go off this time. Just a lesson I had to learn as a director. Give your actors actual direction to go off. And those lines are the ones that made it into the final draft, and thank God they were so much better, and I honestly think he did the best job out of everyone there, myself included. Now, I originally wanted Kabuto to be voiced by the car shifter because of continuity reasons. He voiced him in my god-awful Racing in Italy movie, and I wanted him to return. However, when I got to creating that scene, I couldn't get into contact with him privately. His Instagram was gone, and I didn't want to comment under any of his videos since that would potentially spoil the surprise of the scene, so I did it myself. If you're watching this car shifter, please contact me when it comes time for a sequel. I would love you to be in it. Speaking of original voices, Harumi, Suki, and Chiatsuki were going to be voiced by text-to-speech voices in Google Translate, but I didn't like how they sounded, and plus I'm against using AI in place of character voices, so that whole idea wouldn't fly. I looked into text-to-speech mumbles that video games use, and I found a website that made those for Animal Crossing noises, and I figured, hey, it's cute enough. The website also allowed you to adjust the tone of the line you typed in, and this helped me make their mumbles more distinct from each other, Harumi having the highest, Chiatsuki having the lowest. A thing I really wanted to play with this video was digital effects. There have been digital effects before in my videos using green screens, but due to how limiting iMovie was, my previous editing software, I could only do the bare minimum, and some scenes were really awful. But thanks to the MacBook and Capcut, the possibilities for what I could do was so much more. I was able to place spark effects, explosions, and flames that I all recolored to match the scenes that they were needed for. I honestly think their inclusions made the video feel so much more cinematic and action-packed. Some effects were done by keyframes, which is a digital animation effect. I used this to animate the spray paint shake, the tracking for the helicopter's face, and Boost's nitro effect. Mentioning that originally all the tuners were going to have that effect done for them once, but I decided to use the effect sparingly to make the big times that it was used so much more impactful. Plus, having Boost be the only one to use it sort of made it his own thing, since, you know, it goes with the name, because he's literally boosting. I know, I'm such a smart guy. I eventually want my use of the effects to be movie quality one day, so I look at this video as a good step forward for that goal. Okay, Let's talk about sound design. Sound design is extremely important because it is what the environment of the video is built around. It creates an immersion and adds depth to what the audience is watching. And without it, you get none of that, or it's very poor and takes away from the video's quality and can ruin it. In the past, my previous video sound design were decent and got the job done, but some videos were absolutely cooked by it being so poor. The biggest one that comes to mind is my 𝗵𝗺𝗺 video, unfortunately. I love the video, but I can't stand rewatching it with the knowledge that I have now. Some scenes are matched up perfectly fine, but then there's some that don't even have sound effects to match what's happening on screen. And I really wanted to make up for this travesty, so I took my time to get the sound effects right. I pulled sound effects from all kinds of places: YouTube videos, editing libraries, 𝗵𝗺𝗺, which were actually the same sound effects I used for the 𝗵𝗺𝗺 video. DJ has the same sound effects as 𝗀, and 𝗃𝗂 has the same as 𝗵𝗶𝗀. But a criticism I heard was the engine sound effect I chose didn't match 𝗃𝗂 at all. And yeah, I kinda hear it, but I do wish I chose something different for him. I digress. The rest of the sound effects came from Cars 2, the video game, since someone had actually uploaded every sound effect for that game. Anyway, for the volume, it was key, and I made sure to lower and increase it when necessary. Scenes like the tuners flying by, the police approaching and leaving, and the intensity of the crashes all depended on how important they were. Such as when 𝗏𝗏, 𝗃𝗂, and 𝗏 start wrecked, those sounds are so much more louder than the police's or civilians' ones to show that they mattered more, even stopping the background music to emphasize the immersion break that the characters had in those scenes. DJ was the only one that had the complete opposite happen, and instead had music start up as to represent how dire the situation had just become at that moment. All of you may notice that I exclusively used the Sonic Adventures 2's OST. Around that time I wrote the script, I had replayed the game, and with that in mind, while writing, not only did I decide that the fast-paced music fitted, but also used the game as a reference on how I presented the video. The typing cards are direct references to the game, and honestly made transitioning to each scene much easier. Now, I wanted the entire projects to only be Sonic Adventure 2 music, but when it came for creating the teaser trailer, I couldn't find anything that was short but cinematic. I considered using the short instrumental of Live and Learn, but that was too on the nose. I wanted the song choices to be something you could reasonably hear in cars, and Live and Learn was just not that. So I searched around and found Shadow's Infiltration from Sonic 06, and when I exported it to the footage for the trailer, it was exactly what I wanted. It was short, cinematic, and it just had that flair, you know, to really build excitement. Now, originally, the credit music and teaser trailer music was going to be the exact same, but around the time I put these together, I watched a little show called Cyberpunk Edge Runners. After finishing and watching every character in that show either die or get depression, my only takeaway was, damn, that intro was pretty fire, and I would listen to it constantly while filming. My brain had an earworm, and one day I thought, if only I could include this fire in some way. But then I found this, a non-copyright version of the instrumental that abided by YouTube's copyright system, and when I realized this, I didn't hesitate to make this my credits. I would love to make an AMV of the actual song by Franz Ferdinand using the project's footage one day, but I don't want to get sent to copyright hell, so that's not happening. I don't know, maybe I'll just do it as practice and upload it to a Google Drive. Let me know what you guys think. To add to the cinematic tone I wanted, I played with photo filters. This is something I've been doing for years in my photography, but never in my videos for no particular reason. I guess because the lighting in my videos just got the job done, and I thought that a filter was unnecessary. Not this time around. I adjusted things like the vibrance, saturation, clarity, sharpness, and exposure several times to enhance scenes. I mean, look at the difference between Kabuto's hideout before and after image adjustments. Most of these look great, but I think the port could have been better. I mostly blame the background for this, but I don't think it does a good job representing night as much as it could have when exporting the final draft. The project was so large that Capcut for some scenes did not apply the filters, so I took that draft into another project slot and increased the clarity last second, which did the job. But sadly, some scenes have weird glares that wasn't intended, and 𝗃𝗂 got the worst, man. Now lastly, let's get into how I got around the expressions. For the longest time, I would draw cars' eyes and mouths in an app called Sketchbook, but since my iPad went into ICU, I had no way to draw. I considered doing it with my finger on my phone, but no way in hell I was going to risk getting trigger finger. I thought about drawing on my mouse, but that didn't work. I really thought about how to create expressions while retaining my old style. My graphic designer instincts then reminded me of a class exercise I did on Illustrator a while back. I had to create a line out of the shape tool. Remembering that, I was like, damn, what if I used that? My style for my videos wasn't too hard to replicate and really simple, so I rolled with the idea opting to use 𝗨𝗨𝗺 as a substitute. When creating my banner, I used the character profile pictures as practice, and it started off rough, but I found my stride by the end and would incorporate this method into the video. And I'll be honest here, I think the expressions have never looked better. They're more consistent and refined and easier to fix if there's a mistake. The program also allowed me to blur the expressions for cars in the background to make them feel like they're actually attached to the characters. The only problem I have with them is that the files can corrupt easily, and they did a lot, especially during the end of production, which never failed to piss me off. So if you're considering ever using this technique, please save your file constantly. It'll save you a potential loss of progress. With all that I just discussed, I completed editing the trailer by May 28th and finished editing the final video by June 4th. And it released June 8th. After all that, the video's finally out. And is it perfect? No, absolutely not. I do wish it was a bit longer, especially Act 4. I feel like that whole sequence went by too fast, and there's so much production goofs and areas where the editing could have been better. But was it fun and everything I wanted? Hell yeah! The video hit all my goals production-wise. Better sound design, better animation, and better digital effects. I'm gonna glaze a bit, but you can't lie. This may be the best video to date. And with this new standard I established, I can't wait to really push what my content can do. I wish it didn't take as long as it did, especially with all the shitty stuff that happened, but without the hiatus and time to myself, I don't think the project would have been as impactful as it ended up being. If I didn't have all that time, the quality would have not been as good as it was. You know what they say, never rush art. It also provided me time to rest my mind and really figure things out. The channel really lacked a direction before this video was being made, and before the hiatus I was really struggling to make content, but now things are looking so much brighter. I feel motivated again to get my ideas out and do what's never been done before. So thank you everyone for allowing this to happen. Your warm welcomes and kind words reminded me of why I do this. But before I end this, let's talk about what everyone's wondering. Is there going to be a sequel? Now I'll let you all in on a little secret. The Caputo scene was not in the original final draft of the script and was only added 2 months before production ended. Why is that? Because when reading over the script, I thought about how expansive the actual Fast and Furious franchise was and thought back to the consequences of speeding and realized there can be more of this. It doesn't just have to be a one-off. No, it could be a potential saga that allows me to have even more fun with these characters. And I remembered that was the case for that video too, as that has a follow-up where the tuners are broken out of jail by you-know-who. So yes, I do plan on making a sequel, but for what I have planned, it's going to require a much bigger budget, better equipment, even more die-cast for characters and sets. Hell, I even want to get more people involved as creative voices to make the project even more better. But the only way I can obtain all that is if the current video does well, and all videos moving forward. The 𝗵𝗫𝗺𝗺 video proved to me it is entirely possible for large-scale projects to do extremely well. If you want Fast and Foolish to continue and conclude, I'm gonna need the views to go far and beyond. And I'm very grateful for how much reception the project has so far. I just know moving forward, for what I want to get done with this channel, I really need to push myself. That means I just need to upload more. I just need to be more consistent. It all depends on me. You guys can only do so much, and every little view counts. So I love you all for that. No homo. And if all goes according to plan, we can create an actual movie next time. Well, And that's all, folks. I had a blast covering everything, and hopefully you all learned something new from this video or had a good time watching. All the tutorials mentioned are going to be linked in the description. Make sure you watch the actual video again. Gotta hit those goals somehow. And I implore you all to follow my Instagram since YouTube story feature is no more. This is now the best place to see quick looks into content that's not substantial enough to be a community post. This is where I'll also be uploading my photography of the diecast moving forward, and is the best place to find me when I'm not uploading. I'm also hosting a Q&A over there when this video releases. You can ask me any questions about the project that I didn't cover in this video, or just anything in general. Feel free to ask wherever you want. Alright, more updates to come over there. I love you guys. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.